Welcome to the Agentic AI podcast. We've been looking at all this material articles, internal memos, research, and it all seems to point to this one core confusion in the enterprise world right now.
It really does. There's so much noise out there.
The main question seems to be, are we just, rebranding old automation with some new AI, or is this Agentic AI thing a real functional shift?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question.
Every decision maker I talk to is wrestling with it. Is an LLM an agent? What's the real difference between an AI workflow and an AI agent when you're trying to scale?
And getting those definitions right isn't just about buzzwords. It's critical. It dictates whether you scale efficiently or, frankly, just build a lot of very expensive compliant technical debt.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to try and build a clear three-layered guide for applying these things safely and, effectively in the enterprise.
That clarity is absolutely vital. If you mistake a large language model for an agent, you're either completely underestimating your risk or you're wildly overestimating what your solution could even do.
So we need to break it down.
We do. We need to distinguish between what provides intelligence, what provides structure, and crucially, what provides initiative. We're going to walk through those three layers, starting with the foundations, the static parts.
The first layer, this is the one everybody has some experience with now. The large language model, or LLM.
Right, the foundation.
And as the sources define it, it's a text engine or a reasoning engine. You give it a prompt, some context, and it gives you a result.
That's it. That's the transaction. Its power is in comprehension, in generation.
Yeah.
It can reason incredibly well if you give it all the pieces.
But that's the key limitation, right? The if, it's static.
Completely static. It doesn't observe its environment, it can't take initiative, and it can't access any systems or tools outside of the data you literally paste into the window at that moment.
The analogy I keep thinking about from one of the reports is that support analyst scenario. The analyst copies a long, frustrated customer message into a chat window.
And asks the LLM to draft a compassionate response.
And it does a beautiful job. The tone is perfect, the content is there.
It does. But what it doesn't do is the important part for a business. It can't fetch the customer's profile from the CRM. It can't look up their last 5 support tickets.
Or update the ticket status in ServiceNow.
Exactly. It's a stateless brain in a vacuum. The analyst has to manually do all that work, copy, paste, before the LLM can even start to reason about the real problem. Useful.
Yes.
Autonomous. Not even close.
Which brings us to layer 2, the AI workflow. This feels like the next logical step. If the LLM is the brain, the workflow is sort of the assembly line.
It's the assembly line. It tries to solve that LLM limitation by linking a series of fixed, predefined steps so data can actually flow between systems.
But the key word there is fixed, isn't it?
It is. The defining feature of a workflow is its rigidity. The steps, the order, the logic, it's all hard-coded when it's designed. It's predictable, which is great for compliance.
But it can't improvise.
Not at all. It runs exactly as designed every single time, no exceptions.
And we see that fragility in the classic example of HR onboarding. The workflow is great for the 90% case. Create accounts, generate the welcome email, provision standard software access. It works perfectly.
It does. But what happens the moment the new hire needs something that wasn't in the flowchart? Say, they're a specialist who needs access to some niche legacy database.
The workflow just breaks. It stalls.
It stalls out completely. It can't ask for clarification. It can't look up a policy. It certainly can't figure out the steps to get that access. A human has to step in, and then you're redesigning the whole workflow. That brittleness is the hidden cost of that rigidity.
Okay, so if rigidity is the hallmark of workflows, this is where we have to talk about agents. This is where we cross a line from that static automation into something very different.
This is the agentic shift. An AI agent is fundamentally different because it's defined by a goal, not a pre-written script.
Not a script, a goal.
And to achieve that goal, it has to have 2 things the other layers just don't: initiative and the ability to adapt.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the reports we've seen, they emphasize that agents aren't just, chaining a bunch of LLM calls together. There's a planning component. Can you walk us through how an agent actually decides what to do?
It's the difference between just executing and actually reasoning. A good way to think about it is the ODA, loop, observe, orient, decide, act. It's a concept from military strategy, but it applies perfectly here.
ODA loop. Okay.
So first, the agent observes its environment. It looks at the goal, pulls in context. Second, it orients itself. It checks what tools it has, like APIs or workflows, and what it knows. Third, it decides by creating a dynamic multi-step plan to get to the goal. And finally, it acts.
And if it fails?
That's the magic. If an action fails, it reflects on why, it reorients, and it redecides on a new plan. It self-corrects. A workflow just stops.
So let's apply that to that complex scheduling example from the source material. Someone emails the agent and says, schedule a meeting with 2 key execs next week about Project Chimera. A workflow would just look for calendar slots.
A workflow looks for empty boxes. An agent's goal is successful meeting for Project Chimera. So it goes much, much deeper.
So it observes the email first.
Right. It sees the topic, the people, the timeline. Then it orients. It might use RG to pull up documents about Project Chimera to understand its priority. It checks the exec's calendar, sure, but maybe it also calls an API to check their travel schedules.
Okay, so it's gathering much richer context.
Exactly. Then it decides. It reasons. Okay, this project is high priority. It needs 90 minutes. I should book a private room. And hey, one exec is flying in, so I'll call the weather API for her location just in case, and I'll suggest a remote backup. It generates a whole plan.
And then it acts. It sends the invite, books the room.
It executes the plan. And if room 4B is suddenly double booked, it doesn't fail. It reflects, finds room 5A, and updates the plan. The whole thing is dynamic reasoning, not a fixed chart.
I have to push back a little here, though. We've been building complex workflows with Python logic for years. When does a really sophisticated workflow cross the line and become an agent? Is it just the LLM?
That is the critical dividing line for any enterprise. A complex workflow is designed to handle known deviations with branching logic. It's still operating within a rigid, human-defined boundary.
A box, even if it's a big box.
It's a big box with lots of paths inside. But an agent is defined by its ability to handle unknown deviations. It operates outside the box. If you tell an agent to fix the failing server, it doesn't have a 5-step script for that. It decomposes the goal, sees what tools it has, SSH, logs, dashboards, and it writes a plan on the fly to diagnose and fix the problem.
So if the server fails in a totally new way...
The workflow is useless. The agent adapts. That dynamic adaptation is the unlock.
It is. Okay, so let's talk about how these 3 pieces, LLMs, workflows, agents, actually fit together.
Sure.
Does an organization that's already invested in automation have to just rip and replace everything with agents?
Absolutely not. That's a huge misconception, and it'll kill any enterprise adoption plan. Yeah. They work best together as a layered stack. Think of the agent as the air traffic controller.
It's the orchestrator.
Precisely. The LLM is still there for its reasoning and language skills. Your existing workflows are perfect for clean, high-volume, predictable task-smoothing data from A to B reliably. The agent sits on top, takes the high-level goal, and decides which LLM to call for some reasoning or which existing workflow to trigger for a predictable step.
And it uses its own tools for the messy, unpredictable parts.
The parts that require that adaptive cross-system thinking, yes.
So if we need that quick summary, LLMs answer questions, workflows automate fixed tasks, and agents solve problems and complete goals.
That's it. And they're succeeding where old automation stalled because they solved those 3 huge enterprise blockers. LLMs alone can't touch private data. Static automation is brittle, and legacy systems are siloed. Agents connect all of it.
Let's spend some time on the 4 key areas that the materials identified where these agentic capabilities have the most immediate impact.
Let's do it. First up is business process optimization, especially in areas like finance and procurement. Traditional BPO is just so fragile. A finance workflow for invoice processing is great for a standard invoice.
But what happens when the invoice is, say, 10% over the policy limit? Or the vendor used a slightly different format?
The workflow flags it, and a human has to review it. It stalls. An agent with the goal, validate and approve all incoming invoices, can handle that exception. It sees the deviation. It calls an internal API to check the policy history for that vendor.
It could even draft an email to the vendor for clarification.
It does. Using an LLM, it asks for clarification. And if the policy allows for a small variance, it reasons that out, approves the invoice, and documents the exception in the ERP system. It manages the whole complex task.
Okay, second area, customer experience or CX. This seems obvious on the surface, but it's more than just drafting better emails.
Oh, much more. The agent's real value here is bridging understanding and action. A customer sends one messy email asking for a refund, an address change, and a product recommendation.
All in one paragraph.
Right. The agent reads that unstructured text, identifies the 3 separate intents, and then it pulls the customer's CRM history and loyalty status. Then it acts on all 3 things. It triggers the refund workflow, calls the address change API, and drafts a personalized recommendation. It turns unstructured chaos into structured multi-system action.
The third area is help desk and IT support. This is where the difference seems most stark.
It's a perfect storm for agents. No two incidents are identical, and the data you need is scattered everywhere. Monitoring tools, log files, deployment histories, tickets. A human spends half their time just gathering context.
The agent basically eliminates that cost.
Exactly. An incident comes in. The agent's goal is resolve incident and prevent recurrence. It doesn't wait. It connects to the monitoring dashboard. It inspects the database logs. It correlates that with recent deployments, and it reasons about the likely cause. Then it might take an approved, simple action, like restarting a service, while updating the ticket and notifying the SRE team.
It handles all of level 1 diagnosis and remediation on its own.
It does. Which leads right into the fourth area, SRE and cloud operations. This is really about replacing the repetitive, dashboard staring that humans do.
Moving from reactive to predictive.
To anticipatory, even. Instead of simple threshold alerts that just create noise, an agent analyzes patterns across multiple metrics. A CPU spike, plus failed database connections, plus a low memory warning.
It sees the bigger picture.
It does. Its goal is maintain service level objective. It reasons these three things correlate with the last deployment, and then it can initiate troubleshooting, maybe trigger an authorized rollback, all within strict guardrails before it becomes a full-blown outage.
We have to talk about those guardrails. This is the elephant in the room for any enterprise leader listening. Giving an autonomous agent the keys to your kingdom sounds terrifying.
It is, without the right governance. The agent's autonomy is its power, but it's worthless without absolute control. The foundation for this has to be robust identity and access management. The agent can't just be some rogue service account. It has to act with an auditable identity, tied to a specific SSO profile with clear permissions. If it tries to access something outside its scope, it gets blocked, same as a human.
And what about logging? How do you audit what it did?
That's the second piece. Stringent observability and memory controls. You don't just log that an agent took an action. You have to log why it took the action, the plan it generated, the reasoning. And memory controls are crucial for compliance, ensuring it doesn't retain sensitive data beyond the life of the task.
So this all has to be hosted internally or in a private cloud. You can't just plug this into a public API.
For any serious enterprise use case, absolutely. You run these agents inside your network, they act with an SSO identity, they follow your existing security rules. Autonomy is only valuable when it operates inside those guardrails.
That makes sense.
At the end of the day, the implication here is huge. For decades, automation meant telling a system the exact steps to follow. LLMs let us understand things, but they couldn't act. Agents bring that final piece, the ability to reason, plan, act, and adapt. We're moving beyond automating tasks to creating processes that can actually improve themselves.
So if you need that final rule of thumb, that quick way to distinguish them, it's this. The LLM answers when you ask it. The workflow follows a fixed path, and the agent finds the path.
That's the perfect summary.
So what does this all mean for your organization? It means recognizing that scaling your operations isn't about endlessly tuning brittle workflows anymore. It's about using agents to handle the complexity and the exceptions that always bogged down automation in the past.
Exactly. Agentic AI is the shift from automating tasks to automating problem solving. Think about it. Every time a person has to step in to fix a stalled workflow or diagnose a tricky error, that's a moment of complexity an agent could have handled. The competitive edge comes from creating systems that scale your operations without scaling your headcount.
I'd encourage you to just think about where that repetitive, complex decision-making is slowing your teams down today. Because that gray area, that's exactly where agentic capabilities can provide the foundation for a whole new level of enterprise efficiency. Thanks for joining us.